Are the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, and Customs and Border Protection destroying evidence? Well, we already know they're lying in court. We've seen that. We know they're blatantly defying court orders. We've seen that. And we know they're lying in their press releases. And they're doing this to gin up fake war zones to justify police action. But are they actually destroying evidence? Well, court documents filed this week that are largely going unreported seem to indicate that they are. And I'm going to show them to you. I'm Allison Gill, and this is The Breakdown. All right, is the government destroying exculpatory evidence that proves people they claim are assaulting federal agents are actually innocent, and oftentimes they're the victims of assault perpetrated by the government? We've already got an established pattern. If you've been watching The Breakdown, you'll recall a few weeks ago, this guy. This is Trump's Border Patrol lieutenant in Southern California. His name's Gregory Bavino, a guy, by the way, who has been reprimanded in his employee file for calling undocumented immigrants scum, filth, and trash. And this guy recently lied to a judge and a jury in the case of Ramos Brito, when he said he witnessed Ramos Brito hit a federal agent. But video produced by the public defender in the case showed that the Fed actually hit Ramos Brito. It took a jury less than an hour to acquit. Also, in the Kilmar Abrego case, this is the birthday of one of the people Mr. Abrego was driving to a work site when he was pulled over in 2022. Now, it sure looks like the government altered this evidence by changing the 1 to a 7 so that they could say Mr. Abrego was transporting a minor instead of a 21-year-old, which would earn an automatic detention hearing. And that's not just me speculating, right? That's not just me being like ginning up a conspiracy theory. The magistrate judge in the case, Judge Barbara Holmes, wrote, quote, "Additionally, defense counsel argued at the detention hearing that the 7 in the written birth year of a 2007 appears to have been modified from a 1. That is not entirely without foundation, as there does appear to be some overwriting of the 7. And this week, in the case of Sidney Reed, some evidence mysteriously grew legs and has gone walkies, as Rachel Maddow would say. Sidney Reed is the woman accused of assaulting an FBI agent. But Judge Box of Wine, Jeannie Pirro, took the case to 3 different grand juries, and all 3 refused to return an indictment. So they took Miss Reed to trial on the first ever federal misdemeanor assault case in D.C. Video of the actual incident went missing. We know the officers had it because they watched it while Miss Reed was detained in the back seat of their car, and she recorded that interaction. Now, the feds say the video didn't exist, but somehow it magically turned up the night before trial. And if that weren't enough, the only witness for the prosecution failed to produce text messages until the middle of her 5-hour testimony. And she's the only one who would testify on behalf of the prosecutors. Her text messages showed that she referred to Miss Reed as a libtard and made fun of her injuries, calling it, "Oh, she got a boo-boo." And enigmatically, one of the text messages was missing, just gone. And it took the jury less than 2 hours to find her not guilty. Now that brings me to the filing I saw this week in the case of Marimar Martinez. Ms. Martinez is the woman that was shot by federal agents in Chicago. Now, Department of Homeland Security claimed that Ms. Martinez rammed an ICE vehicle with her car after boxing them in and then brandished a semi-automatic firearm, justifying the agent firing 5 shots at her. Then they claimed she drove herself to the hospital. She's fine. She drove herself to the hospital. But within an hour, the Chicago Fire Department put out a statement refuting one of the claims made by DHS, saying Ms. Martinez did not drive herself to the hospital. She was found by first responders after they were called and taken to Mount Sinai Hospital. Well, it didn't take long for the rest of their claims to fall apart. According to court documents, Ms. Martinez's lawyer says he has video evidence showing that it wasn't his client that rammed the ICE agent's vehicle. In fact, it was actually ICE that hit her vehicle. They pulled up, pointed a gun at her, and said, "Do something, bitch," and then opened fire into her car. Also, Ms. Martinez did not wave around or brandish a semi-automatic firearm. She did have a pistol in her purse, and she has a concealed carry permit to have it. Second Amendment, right? And in her purse is where it stayed. In fact, the indictment didn't even mention the gun. Funny how what DHS says in court filings differs from the lies they tell the public. Now, Ms. Martinez's lawyer has filed a motion to preserve evidence, urging the court to order the Department of Homeland Security to keep all their communications. Quote, "It is Ms. Martinez's position that there are multiple factual inaccuracies in the DHS press release, which presumably originated with Border Patrol agents involved in this investigation. The credibility of DHS agents' descriptions of the event at issue will be the focal point of the defense at trial. Given the importance regarding the accuracy of the events surrounding Ms. Martinez's shooting and the pending criminal charge against her, counsel is requesting that the court enter a preservation order requiring DHS to preserve and maintain any and all records, emails, text messages, documents, notes, and other materials related to the circumstances surrounding the shooting of Ms. Martinez and the gathering of information for the October 4th, 2025 press release." So, the crux of Ms. Martinez's defense is the lack of credibility at DHS. So if there are emails or text messages to the DHS Minister of Truth, Tricia McLaughlin, about how to spin the details on the ground, that's extremely important exculpatory evidence. I'm sure DHS doesn't want another Bovino-style court loss or another Sidney Reed on their hands. And Ms. Martinez's lawyer says in a footnote, and this is what stood out to me, that the evidence at issue could start disappearing. That DHS will potentially delete evidence. Quote, "The AUSA stated they will continue to work on whether the notifications bans be made, but based on the importance of the request and the potential for critical information to be deleted by DHS, counsel is filing this motion to ensure that the information will be preserved." Now, why would a defense lawyer think that the government is going to delete evidence? Probably because they have a history of doing it in a blatant attempt to justify their violent police actions. But, as AOC always reminds us, we have to continue to point out just how ridiculous they are. It is sinister, but it is also ridiculous. This week, ICE agents arrested a man dressed as a giraffe for trespassing, even though he never left the public sidewalk. Watch, they came out to get him.
It's about peace and love. It's about rock and roll in spite of ICE. If you hate brown people and you are a Nazi, come on, ICE, leave Portland. Yeah, why don't you come out with your super soaker? Huh? Oh, here they come. They're not ready for primetime players. Woo! Demolition.
Leave him alone. What are you doing? He's talking? What? He's just talking.
Boo!
See you work for God, that's so
Now that's comedian Robbie Roadsteamer. You may remember him from his greatest hits from like the time he interrupted Steve Bannon's prison release press conference, for example.
Steve, Robbie Roadsteamer here. I'm wondering when's the next insurrection and can we storm the Burger King after this? Like, can we do that? I mean, doesn't he look great now? We were in Danbury the first month together. He looks great. You don't remember me? We were lifting weights and stuff in the weight room. When's the next insurrection? How are we going to do this and stuff, man? You know what? If I'm leaving, I'm having a good time. He looks like Yoda with AIDS right now. Robbie Roadsteamer, no political violence, people. This place smells like mothballs. Wow, over here, where's the elevator? I'm not even going to get, like, hors d'oeuvres or something? For sure.
Or how about this? This is so ridiculous. The ICE agents infiltrating this marching band and arresting a clarinetist. How are they going to justify that one in court? Well, Your Honor, we don't have to remind you of the long history of violent clarinetists, especially in marching bands dressed as bananas playing the theme to Ghostbusters. Anyone who's cracked a history book remembers the banana band clarinetist uprising at the Battle of Who You Gonna Call, #NeverForget. And we laugh, but as I said, this is truly sinister stuff. Snatching people, charging them with crimes for exercising their First Amendment protected right to peacefully assemble, then disappearing evidence and lying to the court. You'll recall last week I talked about ICE blatantly defying a court order issued by Judge Ellis, blocking agents from arresting or firing pepper balls at priests or arresting journalists or protesters unless there's probable cause that they're actually committing crimes. Part of that order included a requirement that federal agents must give multiple warnings before deploying tear gas. After she issued that order, there were 2 high-profile incidents where federal agents did not give multiple warnings before deploying tear gas. One was at Albany Park, and one was in East Side, where agents intentionally rammed a car and then tear-gassed onlookers. The Associated Press reports U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis said she was a little startled after seeing TV images of street confrontations that involved tear gas and other tactics during the Trump administration's immigration crackdown in the nation's 3rd largest city. Quote, "I live in Chicago, if folks haven't noticed," she said, "and I'm not blind, right?" Now, she had issued an order requiring ICE to wear body-worn cameras, though the government argued that they can't make that happen because of the shutdown. Now, the judge snapped back and said that if the government is following the law and my order, the body cams will help federal agents. Quote, "If everybody kind of follows what's outlined in this temporary restraining order, conforms their decisions and behavior to what the Constitution demands, then, all is copacetic and we can go on and live our lives." At that point, the judge asked both parties for some language about the body-worn camera order, but the government ignored it, so she called another emergency hearing. Quote, "Maybe I was unclear yesterday. That wasn't a suggestion, so I'm modifying the temporary restraining order to include the use of body-worn cameras." Again, this was not a suggestion. It wasn't a hint. It wasn't a topic for discussion. It was an order. There'll be a follow-up hearing on this matter tomorrow, Monday. But it's clear the violence is being perpetrated by the government for their own nefarious purposes, plain as day. But not according to Mike Johnson. Watch this.
Ahead of some of the planned protest security this weekend, and in light of some of the images we've seen out of Chicago of federal agents shooting faith leaders with pepper balls and arresting journalists, where's the limit for you on what's acceptable conduct for federal law enforcement, and when is it incumbent on Congress to step up and demand oversight?
To demand oversight on federal law enforcement? Well, I've not seen them cross the line yet, and that we have committees of jurisdiction who have that responsibility, but it's not risen to that level. What I've seen is the abuse of law enforcement by radical leftist activists. Most recently, the most threatening thing I've seen yet was the naked bicyclers in Portland who were protesting ICE down there. I mean, it's getting really ugly. They have attacked, physically assaulted officers. People have been arrested, okay? This is serious business. And ICE and the valiant, brave, patriotic Americans who step up to serve in these dangerous law enforcement positions deserve our respect and our support. And any elected member of this body should be vocally supporting law enforcement. You're supposed to be on the side of the good, not the crazy radicals.
You haven't seen them cross the line? You haven't seen the countless viral videos of ICE agents assaulting protesters, arresting journalists, shooting faith leaders with pepper balls, tear gassing peaceful protesters? You haven't seen any of this? Come to think of it, there's a lot that Mike Johnson doesn't see.
Please, that performance in front of the generals,
I didn't see it.
Is so dangerous.
I don't know what you're talking about with the children. I do know that ISIS.
70 U.S. citizens, according to ProPublica, have been detained by ICE so far since January.
Okay, I haven't seen that, so I'm not going to comment on it. I mean, I don't know all the details of all the individual allegations, and I haven't paid any attention to that at all. I don't know. I haven't.
The letter that President Trump sent to Jeffrey Epstein years ago.
I haven't seen it. I can't comment on it. I've been a little busy today. Well, look, I don't know anything about the dinner. I was a little busy. I have not heard or looked into any of the details of that. I've been a little busy. Look, I've been a little busy on reconciliation, so I'm not following all the twists and turns of the Qatar jet. I don't know anything about the meme coin thing.
Are you comfortable with those cuts?
I haven't seen the specifics of that, and I don't know. We have no idea. But as I said earlier, we await further details on what exactly that looks like.
Do you know what he's talking about with the Epstein files? I mean, what is, and why haven't those files been released? Have you? I mean, some of your members have said they got to be released.
As Cash said in the vignette earlier, he's FBI. That's not my lane. I don't know.
You've been busy. You haven't been to work for 76 out of the last 88 days, sir. You're not working 86% of the time. So you actually have all the time in the world to know what's going on in your country. It is your job. And why aren't you at work? It's the Epstein files. Are you in them, Mike Johnson? Because you're doing an awful lot to maintain plausible deniability here. Adelita Grijalva's victory was certified by the Arizona governor, the Arizona attorney general, and the Arizona secretary of state on October 14th. There are no excuses left to refuse to swear her in. In fact, the attorney general of Arizona, Chris Mays, is getting ready to sue Mike Johnson to get a court order requiring him to swear her in. Here she is on CNN talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that we are going to have no other choice, Laura, except to take Speaker Johnson to court. If he refuses to respond to us, if he doesn't quickly swear in Adelita Grijalva, again, depriving her of the ability to help her constituents. We've had some flooding out here in Arizona. She has no way to help those people in southern Arizona who have been impacted by that flooding. So many other things that she can and should be doing as an elected member of Congress. And so if I have to, I'll take him to court. You know, again, there's no legitimate reason for him to refuse to swear her in right now. No other reason that I can think of except that perhaps she's the final vote to discharge the Epstein files. And it's not fair for Mike Johnson to be holding the state of Arizona hostage because he doesn't want to release the Epstein files.
And speaking of Epstein, Prince Andrew renounced his title for no reason whatsoever, I'm sure, after the posthumous release of Virginia Giuffre's memoir. And the House Oversight Committee has released more files that it got from the Epstein estate. So government shutdown, as I said a week ago, can't stop those files from coming out. One of the call logs shows calls between Trump and Epstein. It also shows meetings between Epstein and a variety of powerful people, including filmmaker Woody Allen, as well as billionaires Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg, and Reid Hoffman. There was even a transcript of an interview in front of Congress with Alex Acosta, admitting that the sweetheart deal he struck for Epstein was not a good resolution. Also this week, Epstein's right-hand accomplice and convicted child sex trafficker herself, Ghislaine Maxwell, is having a hard time making friends at Club Fed in Bryan, Texas. That's where the Bureau of Prisons transferred her, despite her sex offender status, having actually waived it in order to move her. And here's a screenshot of my exclusive reporting on her Bureau of Prisons point screen, it's called. You can see on the bottom left, it says Pub SFTY, sex offender. That's her public safety factor, or PSF. And if you look there on the top right, it says public safety factor waived. She also has a custody status of out. If you look on the right there, the bottom right, You'll see custody, and underneath it says out. That means she's eligible to work outside the prison walls. And while we haven't gotten any reports that she is, her lawyer, Mr. Marcus, refuses to assure us that she won't. But this past week, the Wall Street Journal, that notorious left-wing Antifa publication, reported that Ghislaine Maxwell received mystery visitors, high-profile mystery visitors, high-profile enough to warrant locking down the entire facility. Quote, Maxwell's unexpected arrival upset the camp's usually relaxed atmosphere, leading to more frequent lockdowns, the addition of armed guards, and other changes. Current and former inmates said in interviews that Maxwell appeared to receive unusually favorable treatment, at times sparking resentment from other inmates. And you got to remember, there's a waiting list to get into this facility, and she just skipped the line after meeting with Todd Blanche for a couple of days. Interesting. Now, it couldn't be determined whom Maxwell met with in the chapel that day. Some prisoners heard the lockdown was needed to accommodate important visitors. David Marcus, Maxwell's lawyer, declined to comment. Now, the Oversight Committee has sent a letter to Pamela Bondi, giving her until October 30th to produce at least any good reason, one good reason. Just give us one reason. The Bureau of Prisons waived Ghislaine Maxwell's sex offender status to move her to the Bryan, Texas facility. But I'm sure Pam will use the government shutdown as an excuse not to respond. That's their go-to excuse for anything they don't want to do right now. Can't get body-worn cameras for CPB and ICE agents in Chicago? Sorry, government shutdown. Can't get the Epstein files? Sorry, government shutdown. Want to file a Freedom of Information Act request, which I have? Sorry, government shutdown. Guy from a Nazi group chat can't get laid? It's probably because of the government shutdown. Want to weaponize the Justice Department and indict your political enemies for no reason? Actually, we can do that. This past Thursday, just as I predicted on last week's breakdown, Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has been indicted. And as I clicked on the link to read the charging document, I have to admit, I went in with the preconceived notion that the indictment would be baseless and ridiculous and full of bluster. But it's really not. First thing I did was scroll to the end of the document to see who signed it. It's signed by career prosecutors and not solely by someone like Lindsay Halligan or Jeanine Pirro. This is actually a well-crafted indictment. I think Bolton will have to prove this was politically motivated or that previous declinations to prosecute endanger these charges. So for full details on this indictment, you can listen to today's Unjustified podcast with me and Andy McCabe. Unjustified is free wherever you get your pods. So for more details, check that out. And following Comey's indictment, he had a small victory against Trump's government in that he won a bid to allow some of the discovery to be shared with Comey himself and some of the defense witnesses. The government actually argued that Comey shouldn't get to see the evidence against him. Comey. Now, the government wanted an overbroad protective order over the discovery. They wanted to keep some of it from Comey, like I said, and defense witnesses. But Judge Nachmanoff, a Biden appointee, disagreed and not only denied the government's motion for that protective order, but set a blistering schedule over classified material considerations called SEPA. SEPA is the process where they go through, and if they have to have classified documents at trial, and I can't imagine why they would have any at this trial, but, you know, what are you going to substitute the classified material with? How are you going to present it to the jury without releasing classified information? Over in Judge Cannon's court during Trump's classified documents case, SEPA went on for months and months and months. But according to this order, Judge Nachmanoff wants all of the issues surrounding the use of classified evidence resolved by December 17th. That's why it's called the Rocket Docket. He also said, P.S., we're going to trial January 5th. Just a reminder. And even though the government is shut down, we can commute the sentences of our political allies, including felony fraudster, grand liar George Santos, who only had to serve 3 months of his 87-month sentence after Trump commuted it via Truth Social, because idiocracy is no longer fiction. As always, I like to end the breakdown on an up note. And we have a few good news stories this week. Starting with regard to the government shutdown, multiple major airports are refusing to play Kristi Noem's propaganda video blaming Democrats for the shutdown to captive audiences in security lines. Airports in New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Las Vegas, Portland, Charlotte, Phoenix, Seattle, and more say the video's political content goes against their policies and regulations prohibiting political messaging in their facilities. Another good news story over at the Pentagon, dozens of reporters from multiple news outlets all waited until 4 p.m. so they could hand in their access badges and walk out together in a show of solidarity against Hegseth's policy requiring journalists to get pre-approval on any story before it's released.
To the First Amendment.
Even Fox News and Newsmax didn't go along with this. One America News Network did, and a handful of other obscure networks agreed to it. Also, some good news in Los Angeles County. They've declared a state of emergency over the immigration raids. Now, this move, the reason it's good news, when it was voted on by the Board of Supervisors, it allows officials to mobilize local and federal resources for those impacted by the immigration raids. The declaration would provide things like rent relief, legal aid, and other resources. And some good news in Chicago. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals and a 3-judge panel on that court has unanimously backed the lower court when it blocked the deployment of the National Guard to Chicago. 3 judges, a Biden appointee, a Bush appointee, and a Trump appointee, walk into a bar and said, "We conclude that the district court's factual findings were not clearly erroneous, and that the facts do not justify the president's actions in Illinois." And we'll see what the Supreme Court has to say about that. But speaking of the Supreme Court, they did something right.
Isaac, you did something right.
No way. I wanted it to go to my head.
This week, they refused to entertain Alex Jones's appeal of his $1.4 billion debt to the families of the Sandy Hook massacre for repeatedly lying about it and harassing the victims. I hope one day, soon, The Onion will take over InfoWars and turn it into a parody of itself. So finally, I want to thank everyone who made it out to the No Kings rallies this weekend. Whether you were there in person or virtually, it was a record-breaking, historic, worldwide event showing this administration that we will not be divided, we will not be isolated, and we do not tolerate kings. It was great to see everybody out there, so I really appreciate it. I'm Allison Gill. Thanks for watching The Breakdown.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.